But what exactly is S&P 500 index and why it is widely followed globally?
India forms about 4% of the global market cap. The US forms about 50% of the global market cap. S&P 500 itself is 40% of the world market cap.
How S&P 500 index has fared in terms of returns?
So the last couple of years, returns for S&P 500 have been quite good.
What would be your key message to Indian investors who are looking forward to investment via GiftCity?
There is a platform on through which you can diversify very easily.
So how Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500 index, there is a difference between these two?
Nasdaq 100 and S&P 500 as the BSE and NSE, that Sensex and Nifty that you look at in India.
S&P 500 index, you have Nasdaq 100 companies are also part of this S&P 500 index.
But Nasdaq is meant for a very specific purpose. S&P 500 gives you a very broad mix of conservative companies, defensive sectors.
Returns that investor can expect if they invest into this retail company. Good morning all, and welcome to our podcast Unboxing GiftCity, where we discuss about news, events, products and what's happening in GiftCity, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. In our last episode, we spoke about Parag Parikh Nasdaq 100 Index Fund, a retail fund for our Indian investors who wants to diversify globally in world's largest technology and innovation companies. To continue this journey, I have Mr. Nirmal from Parag Parikh. Today we continue this journey and turn our focus to another iconic global benchmark, S&P 500 Index, which represent 500 of the largest and the most established companies in the United States. I have with me Nirmal ji from Parag Parikh, and we are going to discuss about the USD denominated S&P 500 fund of Parag Parikh. Welcome to podcast, Nirmal ji.
Thank you once again, Nitin ji, for having me.
Nirmal ji, many investors hear about S&P 500 index. It's a global benchmark which we all follow, those who are investing into global market. But what exactly is S&P 500 index and why it is widely followed globally?
So if you look at the global market cap, India forms about 4% of the global market cap. The US forms about 50% of the global market cap. 80% of US market cap is captured in the S&P 500 index. So effectively, S&P 500 is 40% of the global market cap. What it gives you exposure to is a diversified pool of companies which are the largest in their sector. So 500 of the largest US companies by free float and spread across all 9 GICS sector classification.
Nirmal ji, many investors they follow this global benchmark S&P 500 index. But ये S&P 500 index होता क्या है, थोड़ा सा वो अगर आप briefly बता पाएंगे, and why it is so followed globally?
So S&P 500 consists of the 500 largest US companies which are diversified across all 9 GICS sectors. So why is S&P 500 so important? So अगर आप इंडिया को देखते हो तो इंडिया का मार्केट कैप एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ वर्ल्ड मार्केट कैप सिर्फ 4% है. US on the other hand is 50% of the US of the world market cap. S&P 500 is 80% of that, which means S&P 500 itself is 40% of the world market cap. That is that diversified and that significant exposure that you gain when you invest in a S&P 500 index. And S&P 500 consists of only US companies. That is true. But this US companies have nearly 30% or more than that of their revenue coming from outside of US. So US exposure with global diversification.
How S&P 500 index has fared in terms of returns, if you can, as compared to say our Nifty 50 and the other global benchmarks?
So the last couple of years, returns for S&P 500 have been quite good, led by the Mag 7s and the Nvidia and everything, but that is not a right way to look at it. So if you were to look at it over a longer period of time, and if you look at it since 1991, the 3-year, 5-year rolling returns that S&P 500 has generated is around 8.5 to 9%. Over and above that, you'll have the dividend deals, which will add another 1.5 to 2% kind of thing. So this is a dollar denominated return of around 10% or maybe slightly higher than that. And for Indian investors, when they are looking at this, there would be an additional return that will come that comes from the rupee depreciation. So over the same period of time, rupee is depreciated by 3 to 4%.
Yes.
Effectively, the returns from S&P 500, despite the size and everything, have ended up around Nifty 50 or even slightly higher depending on what time periods you choose.
Yeah, but thank you. Now, again, a very basic question. I mean, there are two global indexes like S&P 500 index, and you have Nasdaq 100 also, which we discussed at length in our last episode. But for my audience, if you could again know how Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500 index, there's a difference between these two. So if you could just let us know.
Yeah, I think great question, because this is something that most people in India would look at Nasdaq 100 and S&P 500 as the BSE and NSE, that Sensex and Nifty that you look at in India, but that is not the case. I mean, there are stocks which are common, but Nasdaq is meant for a very specific purpose. There are no financial companies. It has very high concentration on technology, and it is an innovation focused index, while S&P 500 gives you a very broad mix of conservative companies, defensive sectors, as well as financials, as well as all the innovative companies and all as well. So all the companies that are there in Nasdaq 100, about 88 companies are common between Nasdaq and S&P 500, and they constitute around 50% of the total weightage. So for S&P 500, so the rest 50 is the diversification, additional diversification, as well as the uh,
So you mean to say that with S&P 500 index, you have Nasdaq 100 companies are also part of this S&P 500
Yes.
index. So by investing into S&P 500 index, a retail investor get access, or he can globally invest into the other companies also, which are not into AI and tech space.
yeah. So you get not just the innovation, but also a defensive pool of companies. And so the volatility, if you look at S&P 500 versus Nasdaq 100, while Nasdaq 100 has given better returns, but in terms of volatility, S&P 500 is much lower. As
So Nirmal ji, in your last episode, we discussed about your Nasdaq 100 fund. Now this episode or podcast is specifically for the Parag Parikh S&P 500 Index Fund retail fund, which is available for Indian resident. Tell us about this fund. What is the structure of this fund? What is the minimum investment? Who can invest? And again, what is the onboarding criteria or the documents? And again, anything that you want to tell the audience about this fund, sir.
the Parag Parikh IFSC S&P 500 fund of fund, as the name suggests, is looking to invest into ETFs or UCITS that are linked to S&P 500 index. We are not looking to directly buy stocks in this fund. It is structured as a retail fund, which means the ticket size remains very small and affordable, $5,000 for initial investment, and then $500 for top up. The onboarding for this fund as well as the Nasdaq 100 fund is common, which means that once you have opened a folio with PPFAS gift, that same folio can be used for investing in either of these funds, as well as any future outbound funds that we come out with. So that ways it is a very simple process. Again, it's just an once you go to our digital platform and open a folio within 10 minutes. After that, it is all about doing the digital investments through the
payment link that
to the
you can
payment
provide.
links that we'll provide.
Okay, okay. And what is the returns that investor can expect if they invest into these retail funds? I know that this is a very new fund in Gift City, and you have just started your journey. I think it's 1 month back. But still, if at all any figure or a benchmark that comes to your minds.
I think given the passive nature of the funds, the best benchmark for this to track would be the total return index for S&P 500, and that over a very long period of time has given somewhere between 9 to 10% kind of return, that in dollar terms. So that is something that people should have in mind while looking at this fund, that the last couple of years have been very positive in terms of returns, and that may or may not continue. But if someone is coming with a horizon of 5 years, which we suggest, then the expected return should be around the long term S&P 500 average 5 year rolling return.
Yeah, and this fund is again a open-ended fund. There are no exit loads for any redemption in between.
Yeah, this is a open-ended fund. No, there are no exit loads. There's no lock-ins, and the redemptions and uh, redemptions as well as subscriptions can happen on a daily basis. Similar to the other fund, there are two NAVs that are published on a daily basis: the long-term post-tax as well as the short-term post-tax NAV. Long-term post-tax is what you'll get when you subscribe, and also if you are redeeming beyond a 2 year horizon.
Okay. And again, the custodian is same like the
Yes.
Kotak, that you have the arrangement, and the payment
Yeah.
service provider arrangement is also there,
Yeah.
which eases the transfer of
Entire
funds.
process.
Okay. Thank you. What would be your key message to Indian investors who are looking forward to investment via Gift City?
So my key message to not just investors who are looking forward to investing through GiftCity, but to each and every individual out there who's looking to build a portfolio, is that global diversification is very important for each and every one. And with GiftCity, there is a platform on through which you can diversify very easily, similar to a mutual fund investment in India. And these are also very tax efficient as well as cost efficient mechanisms of doing this global investing. So everyone should look at building a portfolio, a dollar denominated portfolio, and look at having these funds as a part of the same.
Nirmalji, the minimum investment for this fund is again $5,000, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Can a client or an investor, if he wants to do an SIP, is it available, this facility?
So SIPs, because the money goes through LRS, SIPs at present are not possible, but we are looking at ways and means to build a SIP system. So a few months down the line, we'll look at having something of that sort. Again, importantly, one of the points that we missed, will you take OPIL?
Okay, thank you. Again, for entities who are interested in this fund and family offices, because we are seeing many family offices, they want to venture into Gift City for their investments. So, is the fund available for them?
Yes. So while individuals can invest through the liberalized remittance scheme, there's that limitation that comes in of $250,000. So large family offices as well as non-individuals who do not have that LRS capabilities can come in through OPI, Overseas Portfolio Investment Group, which allows non-individuals to invest up to 50% of their net worth in pooled vehicles in Gift City, and these funds are very much open for OPI investments as well.
Thank you, Nirmalji, for your insights, and it was pleasure talking to you on the funds which are there in Gift City. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
So, if you have any questions in your mind and you want to ask us, do send your comments on our channel, and also you can subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.